Today's podcast looks at the ballad Willie of Winsbury, also known as Tom Barbery in the English and Irish versions. This is a song of seduction of a wealthy heiress by a servant man, which has a happy ending. I'll explore its background and printing history, sing samples of the tunes associated with the song, and end on a full performance. Now it fell out upon a day, the proud king went from his home, oh, his daughter Janet fell very sick, and longed for his coming home, oh. What aileth thee, my daughter Janet? You are so pale and wan, oh. You've surely been some long thinking, or else you've been lying with a man, oh. Is he a man of majesty, or is he a man of might, oh? Or is he a rank rebel that is from Scotland come, oh? It's not a man of majesty, nor to a man of means, oh, but it's to Sir Thomas of Winsbury, and I long to speak with him, oh. He's called up his merry men, by one, by two, by three, oh. You'll go and seek that Winsbury rogue, for tomorrow's his dying day, oh. That tune was collected by Gavin Gregg in April 1906 from Arthur Barron of New Deer in Aberdeen. This tune was common to the majority of the tunes collected by Gregg for this song in the Aberdeen area. This is a song of a seduced maiden whose father is a powerful lord, sometimes a king. He realises his daughter Janet is pregnant and demands to know the name of the father. The seducer is Willie of Winsbury, one of her father's serving men. He is described as a man of great beauty. When the father sees Willie, he realises that had he, the father, been a woman, he would have found it hard to resist Winsbury's advances. He asks Willie to marry his daughter and become heir to his land. As sometimes happens in folk tales, Willie is really a prince or a wealthy landowner who took on the role of servant because he loves Janet. He marries Janet, then reveals his true station in life and the fact that he is very wealthy. The ballad has variable names from the Scottish Winsbury, Witchbury, Winesbury, to the English and Irish Tom Barbery or Barber, John Barbour, and so on, depending on where the song was collected. It's difficult to determine whether the ballad originated in Scotland or in England. The existing collective versions from both countries have common dates. The ballad was first collected in the late 1700s. A manuscript copy was found in David Hurd's collection, circa 1770, which refers to Will of Winsbury, and a version in the manuscripts belonging to Thomas Percy in 1775 refers to Tom Barber. This shows that the ballad had been in common circulation long before it was collected. It had travelled and evolved sufficiently for the establishment of two distinct versions that carry the same storyline and shared verses. It's generally accepted as a Scottish ballad and was probably composed around the late 16th century. No, it's not by any sea captain, nor by any gentleman, for it is by young Thomas so bright, your honoured servant man, your honoured servant man. Well, and if it's by Tom Barbery, I think you're not to blame, for I really do believe if I'd been a maid myself that I might have lain with him, that I might have lain with him. Now he's called up his servant men by one and two and three, and young Thomas, who used to be the very first, the last to come in was he, the last to come in was he. Now wilt thou wed my daughter dear, and take her by the hand, for 'tis you shall dine and sup along with me, and be heir over all my land, and be heir over all my land. The tune and words for that version were collected by George Gardner in June 1907 from Charles Bull of Southampton, Hampshire. There have been some efforts by various scholars to link the ballad to an actual event, but the factual records of kings and various rich families of England and Scotland do not match the event told in the ballad. Some versions link the ballad to the King of France, but there's nothing that convinces us to accept this. There was a Winsbury family that lived in Shropshire. During the 1330s, two men named Thomas and William Winsbury, who were father and son, were known to be in Scotland, but there's no historical record linking them to any marriage into the Scottish family. The probable answer is that when composing the Scottish version of the ballad, the author used an existing romantic folktale, using the Winsbury name because it was unusual and it had a connection to Scotland in the past. The first book printings were by Peter Buchan in 1825 in Gleanings of Scotch, English and Irish Scarce Old Ballads, and by George Kinloch in Ancient Scotch Ballads in 1828. There's a wide variety of tunes. Bertrand Bronson divided the tunes into 4 distinct melodic patterns from which the variations evolved. The tune printed in Kinloch's book has become more widespread to a modern audience after Anne Briggs and several other singers recorded it in the 1960s. The tune is common to a number of other ballads, including Binori and False Foodridge. Cast off your berry brown gown, you stand naked upon the stone, that I may know you by your shape, whether you be a maiden or none. And she cast off her berry brown gown, she stood naked upon the stone. Her apron was low, and her haunches were round, and her face was pale and wan. Was it with a lord or a knight, or a man of birth and fame? Or was it with one of my serving men that's lately come out of Spain? No, it wasn't with a lord nor a knight, or a man of birth and fame, but it was with Willie of Winsbury. I could bide no longer alone. And the king he has called on his merry men all, by 30 and by 3, says, fetch me this Willie of Winsbury, for hanged he shall be. In some Scottish versions, when the Lord returns from his long voyage, he notices changes in his daughter Janet. In order to determine the cause of her change, he has her stand naked on a stone. He sees that her body shape has changed and realises that she's pregnant. It's been suggested that the stone may have magical properties, perhaps it's druidic or a fairy stone. There's no clear evidence of this revealed in the ballad words, nor can I find any lore or legend to give guidance. Therefore, I'll leave the discussion to you. If there is some lore that clarifies this, please let me know. The versions collected in North America follow the British versions in that they also have the variable titles of Willie of Winsbury and Tom Barbery, or variations of these names. These probably depend on the original country of the settlers in that area. This is a fine song to sing, even though the storyline is a little bit weak. The tunes help the song to move along, leaving a good tale with a happy ending, enough to please any audience. I'll end this podcast with a version of Tom Barbery collected by Cecil Sharp in January 1906 from Mr. Gorge of Bridgewater in Somerset. As I looked o'er the castle wall to see what I could see, the very first thing was me father's ship come a-sailing o'er the sea, come sailing o'er the sea. Oh, what's the matter with you, my daughter Jane, that you look so pale and wan?
Have you had some sore sickness, or been lying with some young man? Been lying with some young man? Oh, I have had no sore sickness. I've been sleeping with no young man, but I have a grief to my very, very heart, since you've been so long at sea, since you've been so long at sea. Then she took off her gown of green, she hanged it against the wall, her stays would not meet, nor her apron strings tie. She was full 3/4 gone, she was full 3/4 gone. Is it by any noble gentleman, or to one of low degree, or is it by some jolly, jolly tar that sails in along of me, that sails in along of me? Oh, it isn't by any noble gentleman, nor to one of low degree, but it's by the jolly, jolly tar that sails in along of thee. Aye, sails along of thee. So he's called up his merry, merry men, by 1, by 2, by 3, and Tom Barbery that used to come first, the last to come in was he, the last to come in was he. Then in came Tom Barbery bold, he was dressed all in the silk, his eyes did shine like the morning sun, his hands so white as milk, his hands so white as milk. Will you marry my daughter Jane? Will you take her by the hand? And you shall dine and sup along with me, and be heir to all my land, and be heir to all my land. Yes, I'll marry your daughter Jane, I'll take her by the hand, I shall dine and sup along with thee, but I care not for your land, but I care not for your land. Now I have horses, and I have land, and money under my command. Had it not been for your daughter dear, I would never have been your man, I would never have been your man.